Okay, we are looking at the same concept that we did previously. We're still going to look at those special right triangles. There is no IXL today, only a worksheet. And again, instead of a new concept, this is the same concept that we had on Tuesday. So if you can get this done today, you will be done with math until after spring break. Now again, one of those two triangles is the 45, 45, 90. Notice that the legs must have equal length, and that the hypotenuse is always the square root of 2 times a leg. So if I know a leg, I multiply by square root of 2 to get the hypotenuse. If I know the hypotenuse, I divide by square root of 2 to get a leg. And what I always remember, if there's two equal sides, I use root 2. The other special triangle is the 30, 60, 90 triangle. Now, the shortest side, the shorter of the two legs, must be opposite the 30-degree angle. The side opposite the 6-degree angle is the longer of the two legs, and it is always square root of 3 times the shorter leg. And then the hypotenuse is always 2 times the shorter leg. Notice that everything is compared to the shorter leg. If I start with the longer leg, or if I start with the hypotenuse, I have to go through the shorter leg to get around the triangle. If I'm lucky, I start with the shorter leg. If I'm not so lucky, I start with the hypotenuse, or I start with the longer leg. In the memory aid that I use, 3 different sides, root 3. Right? When two sides are the same, I use root 2. 3 different sides, I remember that root 3. Now, I'm going to try to present the examples in a different manner than I did on Tuesday, and we'll see if it makes a little bit more sense. Before we dive in, though, just a reminder, we use capital letters for angles. We use the lowercase letters for sides. Sides have to be opposite the corresponding angles. For example, notice side A is opposite angle A. And although it's not required, we normally use C for the hypotenuse, and therefore C for the right angle. Okay, so let's take a look at these. And I'm going to do the examples a little bit differently. I had the PowerPoint that we did on Tuesday set up from how I usually teach when I'm in the classroom. And we normally fill in that grid in the classroom. But of course, we were not in the classroom. And so it was probably not the best method of introducing this. So I want to revisit this skill. But I'm going to try to do this a little bit differently so it better matches what will be on today's worksheet, better matches what was on Tuesday's worksheet, and better matches what was on Tuesday's IXL. So if you have not yet completed Tuesday's worksheet, or if you've not yet completed Tuesday's IXL, this should really help you out. If you were successful on Tuesday, then this should just be extra practice, and you can get this done and work on the other classes you need to work on so you can enjoy spring break. Okay, what side do I know? Well, it's opposite angle A, so we know side A. Okay, that is the shorter leg because it's across from the smallest angle, 30 degrees. So if I want the hypotenuse, I have to multiply by 2. 12 times 2 is 24, so that's going to be side C, the hypotenuse. How am I going to find side B? Well, I take the short leg, multiply by square root of 3, and there's my answer. Notice I am not going to pick up a calculator and push buttons, right? The answer is just 12 root 3. That's an exact, precise value. What side did I start with this time? Well, that looks like it's opposite angle B, so that is side B. because it's opposite the 60-degree angle, I know it's the longer of the two legs. So if I want the shorter leg, I must divide by the square root of 3. That leaves me with just 8. And then if I want the hypotenuse, I have to take this shorter leg and multiply by 2. 8 times 2 is 16. There is my hypotenuse. Well, there's one more side we've not started with, so we better start with the hypotenuse, right? We've not started there yet. So that is side C. How do I find the shorter leg? Divide by 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9. So side A is 9. How do I find the longer leg? I multiply by root 3. And notice I really don't have to do anything other than put the root 3 right after the 9. Right? Don't grab a calculator. We want exact values. Okay, now, even though we've done one of each type of triangle, we've not done one of the ones where it gets a little bit messy. The only time it really gets messy is if we start out with the longer leg and we don't see a root 3. Right? So in this case, we're starting out with side B equal to 6. Well, if that's the long leg, how do I find the short leg? I have to divide by the square root of 3. Thank goodness we studied this earlier in the school year, all of our radicals. Right? I'm going to multiply by the number 1, but I'm going to disguise the number 1 as root 3 over root 3. Reason why I do this? Well, in the denominator, root 3 times root 3 is root 9. And the square root of 9 is plain old 3. Right? So I no longer have a square root in the denominator. Hey, 6 is really 3 times 2. So the 3 in the denominator will cancel the 3 in the numerator. And I'm left with 2 times the square root of 3. And so side A, the shorter leg, is 2 times the square root of 3. If I want the hypotenuse, got to multiply by 2. So 2 times 2 root 3 is going to become 4 root 3. Hypotenuse is 4 root 3. Hey, let's take a look at our other good friend, the 45, 45, 90 triangle. If one leg is 6, in this case it looks like we're starting with leg A. The other leg must also be 6. Right? If the angles are both 45 degrees, the legs have to be the same. And then for the hypotenuse, remember, 2 sides are the same. Multiply by root 2. There's my answer, 6 root 2 for the hypotenuse. Okay, what if instead we start with the hypotenuse? Well, in this case, we're starting, we know side C is 5 root 2. How do I find a leg? Divide by the square root of 2. So the square root of 2's cancel, leaves me with 5. Notice which side I actually just found here. I found side B. And of course, side A has to match, so that'll also be 5. Okay, so we've done both techniques with the 45, 45, 90, but we've not done a messy one yet, so we better do a messy one. So the messy type is when we have the hypotenuse and we don't see the square root of 2. So I'm starting with the hypotenuse, also known as side C. And if I want a leg, I need to divide by the square root of 2. 14 divided by square root of 2. Okay, again, I'm always allowed to multiply by the number 1 and not change the value. So I'm going to multiply by the number 1, but look at how it gets disguised, root 2 over root 2. Because now in the denominator, root 2 times root 2 is root 4. And of course, the square root of 4 is just 2. Now don't try to cancel those 2 in the denominator with the 2 inside the square root symbol, right? The 2 inside the square root symbol is not available for canceling. Instead, I have to recognize that 14 is 7 times 2, and now the 2 in the numerator can cancel with the 2 in the denominator. I'll be left with the 7, and I'll be left with the square root of 2. And again, it looks like I just did my work over there where side B belongs. So I will proclaim that side B is 7 root 2. And of course, if side B is 7 root 2, side A has to be 7 root 2, because the legs must be congruent. In other words, they have to have equal lengths. Right? If one leg is 7 root 2, the other leg must be 7 root 2. That's because those 45-degree angles, you can either think of it as being equal measurement, because they both are equal to 45 degrees, or if you actually want to talk about the shape, you'd say, oh, those are congruent angles. Okay, something tells me that this is going to spell out the word worksheet. There is a worksheet today, and there is no IXL today, only the worksheet. So if you can get through the worksheet, woohoo, you're done with math, unless you need to double back and fix up Tuesday a little bit. Again, for my Zoom classroom, if you want to stop by for a minute and say hi, you can stop by for a minute and say hi. If you want to stay for an hour, you can stay for an hour. If you want to stay for 2 hours, you can stay for 2 hours. If you've got questions and you want some help, I think the Zoom classroom is perhaps the best way to go. If you only need 3 minutes worth of help, hang out for 3 minutes, get the help you need, and then get out of the room. If you're not comfortable being on camera, you do not have to be on camera. But I really think that if you do want some assistance, that using your laptop for Zoom is the way to go, because I can share my desktop with you, and instead of just trying to talk to you, or instead of just trying to trade emails back and forth, I can actually show you step by step how to do some of the questions. And my hunch is if I do 1 or 2 questions with you, you'll catch on and you'll say, hey, I don't need your help anymore, Mr. John. And then you'll just leave the Zoom conference call and you'll just go off on your own. But anyway, 1 worksheet, no Excel today. If you get that done, try to tidy up what you've got for your other academic classes. My understanding is that Friday is going to be a makeup work with no new assignments and some optional video calls. That'll be kind of fun. So let's try to get stuff wrapped up, and then you can enjoy a nice long spring break, which is going to actually be 9 days, right? Because it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 9 days sounds like a good little break there. So we'll see you on the flip side if I don't hear from you in the Zoom conference call.